The massive Zyraxian observation ship, the Stellar Inquisitor, drifted into Earth's orbit like a wounded predator. Its iridescent hull bore the scars of recent conflicts. Plasma burns and micrometeorite impacts told a story of a civilization perpetually at war. Captain Zorax sat in her command chair, her four-segmented fingers drumming a nervous rhythm against the bioorganic control interface. "Preliminary scans, Krilltak," she demanded, her translator rendering the click consonant Zyraxian language into crisp, clinical standard Galactic. Krilltak, a junior researcher with more curiosity than typical Zyraxian military protocol allowed, adjusted the ship's advanced sensory arrays. His secondary eyes, the analytical ones that distinguished research specialists, narrowed as holographic displays flickered to life around the bridge. "Unexpected readings, Captain," he reported, his voice a mixture of professional detachment and barely concealed excitement. "The planetary surface displays complex environmental interactions that defy our initial intelligence reports." The main view screen came alive with a scene that immediately challenged everything the Zyraxian invasion protocols had predicted. Below them, a group of humans were engaged in what appeared to be a suicidal mountain rescue operation. The terrain was treacherous, sharp rocky outcroppings, near vertical cliff faces, and wind conditions that would have turned most species into frozen statues. But the humans moved with a precision that was almost mechanical, yet distinctly organic. A team of 6 rescuers navigated the impossible landscape. Their equipment looked primitive by Zyraxian standards: ropes, carabiners, harnesses that seemed more like rudimentary binding mechanisms than advanced survival gear. Yet they moved with a synchronicity that spoke of something deeper than simple training. "Analyze their communication patterns," Captain Zorax ordered, her skepticism evident in the way her translator rendered her words. Krilltak's fingers danced across the sensory controls. The ship's advanced linguistic and behavioral analysis systems began breaking down the humans' interactions. What emerged was not the chaotic communication of a primitive species, but a complex network of verbal and nonverbal cues that suggested something far more intricate. The rescue scenario unfolded like a deadly dance. One of their team members was suspended precariously on a narrow ledge, seemingly trapped. Instead of panic, the team displayed a remarkable calm. They communicated through a combination of verbal instructions, hand signals, and what could only be described as intuitive understanding. "They're compensating for environmental variables in real time," Krilltak muttered, more to himself than to the bridge crew. No predetermined protocol could account for this level of adaptability. A particularly challenging moment came when the suspended team member's safety line began to fray. In his Zyraxian rescue operation, this would have been a point of absolute failure. Protocols would demand immediate extraction or abandonment of the endangered individual. These humans did something else entirely. 2 team members simultaneously began a complex maneuver. One began reinforcing the fraying line using what appeared to be emergency repair techniques, while another started a delicate repositioning that would provide additional support. Their movements were not just coordinated. They were predictive, anticipating each other's actions with a precision that suggested something beyond mere training. "This is not a military unit," Captain Zorax observed, her translator rendering her clicks and chirps into a tone of growing unease. "These are civilians performing what they consider a routine rescue." Krilltak's secondary eyes pulsed with a bioluminescent intensity that indicated deep cognitive processing. "Precisely why this is concerning, Captain. They treat potential death as a problem to be solved, not a limitation to be feared." As the rescue concluded, with all team members safe, no less, the Zyraxian bridge fell into a stunned silence. This was not the planet of primitive beings they had been led to expect. This was something else entirely. "Begin comprehensive cultural and behavioral analysis," Captain Zorax finally said, a note of something very close to respect threading through her translated words. "Whatever is happening on this planet, we need to understand it completely." Little did they know, this mountain rescue was merely the first glimpse into humanity's true nature, a nature that would soon challenge everything the Xeraxian Empire understood about survival, adaptation, and the very concept of intelligent life. Krilltak's obsession with the mountain rescue team consumed him. Within the sterile confines of the Stellar Inquisitor's research module, holographic displays reconstructed every moment of the human rescue operation. His fellow researchers watched with a mixture of confusion and growing unease. The team that had captured his attention was anything but a standard rescue unit. Sarah Rodriguez, a 48-year-old retired military veteran turned high school physics teacher, stood out immediately. Her file revealed a background that defied simple categorization: a decade in special forces, followed by a complete career shift to education. The Xeraxian behavioral analysis algorithms struggled to comprehend such a transition. Next was Michael Chen, a software engineer whose recreational climbing hobby seemed to blend complex problem-solving with physical endurance. His movements during the rescue revealed a mind that treated vertical terrain like an intricate coding challenge. Each hand placement, each weight distribution was a calculated decision, not just a physical action. Elena Vasquez, a professional chef, brought another layer of complexity. Her culinary background translated into an unexpected skill set. Where most would see a rocky cliff face, she saw a three-dimensional puzzle, each move a carefully balanced recipe of risk and precision. Her communication with the team suggested an almost telepathic understanding of group dynamics. The Xeraxian research team decided to create a comprehensive simulation. They would recreate the mountain rescue scenario under increasingly impossible conditions, hoping to expose the limits of human capability. The first simulation began relatively straightforward. Environmental variables mimicked the original rescue: steep terrain, limited visibility, unstable ground. The holographic representations of the human team performed exactly as they had in the original scenario, but the Xeraxians introduced unexpected complications. Sudden rock slides, simulated equipment failures, communication blackouts. Where a Xeraxian rescue team would have fractured under such pressure, the human team adapted with a fluidity that bordered on the impossible. Sarah's military training kicked in during communication disruptions. She developed hand signals that compensated for the lost audio link. Michael's engineering background transformed a damaged climbing anchor into a makeshift safety mechanism. Elena's understanding of team dynamics kept the group's psychological state stable. "This is not training," Krilltak muttered, his secondary research eyes pulsing with an intensity that indicated deep cognitive processing. "This is something more fundamental." The simulation reached a critical point when all standard protocols would have demanded team retreat. Instead, the humans pressed forward. They weren't just completing a rescue. They were solving a complex, three-dimensional problem that constantly changed its parameters. When the simulation finally concluded, the Xeraxian researchers were silent. Their advanced predictive models had been completely overwhelmed. The humans hadn't just survived. They had transformed the very concept of survival into an art form. Krilltak's personal logs that evening revealed his growing realization. Humans didn't see challenges as obstacles to be avoided. They saw them as opportunities to be understood, manipulated, and ultimately conquered. Further investigation revealed something even more disturbing. This mountain rescue team wasn't a specialized unit. They were essentially a group of hobbyists who trained together regularly. What the Xeraxians considered extreme survival scenarios, humans treated as weekend recreational activities. The team's background checks revealed a network of skills that seemed almost designed to create the perfect adaptive unit. Sarah's military and educational background, Michael's technological problem-solving, Elena's understanding of resource management and team dynamics. But it was their personal relationships that truly fascinated the Xeraxian researchers. They weren't just a team, they were a chosen family. Their bond transcended professional requirements, creating a support system that made them exponentially more effective than any standardized unit. As the Stellar Inquisitor continued its observation, Krilltak made a recommendation that would change everything. They needed to understand these humans not as a potential conquest, but as a potential model of survival itself. The mountain rescue was just the beginning, and the Ziraxians were starting to realize that everything they knew about survival was about to be completely rewritten. The underwater camera feed came to life, revealing a world of claustrophobic darkness and geological complexity that would have broken lesser species. Dr. Elena Martinez led a team of marine biologists and cave explorers into a recently discovered underwater cave system off the coast of Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. What began as a routine exploratory mission would become a testament to human adaptability that would haunt the Ziraxian research team for generations. Krilltak watched the holographic display with an intensity that made his fellow researchers uncomfortable. The humans moved through the underwater labyrinth with a grace that defied their apparently fragile biology. Their equipment was a curious mix of advanced technology and seemingly improvised solutions. Custom-modified rebreathers, handcrafted mapping tools, and communication devices that seemed to dance between cutting-edge science and creative engineering. The cave system was a nightmare of geological complexity. Narrow passages twisted between massive limestone formations, with sections so tight that a single miscalculation would mean certain death. Ziraxian exploration protocols would have demanded massive technological intervention, entire teams of specialized mining and exploration vessels. These humans approached it with what could only be described as a combination of scientific curiosity and recreational enthusiasm. Dr. Martinez wasn't just a scientist. Her background revealed a mosaic of experiences that seemed deliberately designed to create the perfect explorer. A marine biologist with additional certifications in emergency medicine, cave diving, and geological mapping. Her team was equally impressive, a mix of professional researchers and what the Ziraxians initially dismissed as hobbyists. Halfway through the exploration, the situation transformed from a scientific expedition to a survival scenario that would have destroyed any other species. A section of the underwater cave began to collapse. The Ziraxian researchers leaned closer to their holographic displays, expecting to witness the team's imminent destruction. Instead, they watched something far more remarkable unfold. Instead of panic, the team initiated a series of actions that suggested a collective intelligence far beyond individual survival instincts. Two team members immediately began creating a temporary safe zone, using a combination of emergency equipment and creative problem-solving. Another began documenting the geological changes, transforming a potential death trap into a scientific opportunity. Dr. Martinez's response was what truly shocked the alien observers. She didn't just manage the crisis. She used it as a learning experience. Her communication with the team was a ballet of precise instructions and collaborative decision-making. When their primary communication device was damaged by falling rocks, they switched to a series of hand signals and touch-based communication protocols that seemed to defy the limitations of their underwater environment. "They're not just surviving," Krilltak muttered. "They're learning." The most shocking moment came when the team discovered an entirely new underwater ecosystem during their escape. Instead of focusing solely on survival, they took samples, captured video evidence, and maintained their scientific protocols, even as the cave continued to destabilize around them. What should have been a disaster became a groundbreaking scientific expedition. When they finally emerged, all team members intact, with scientific data that would revolutionize multiple research fields, the Ziraxian research team sat in stunned silence. Krilltak's secondary research eyes pulsed with an intensity that indicated a fundamental shift in understanding. These weren't just humans. These were living systems of adaptation, curiosity, and collective intelligence that operated on a level far beyond simple survival. The underwater cave exploration was more than a mission. It was a demonstration that for humans, challenges were not obstacles. They were opportunities. What other species would consider a near-death experience, humans transformed into a chance for discovery. Captain Zirax reviewed Krilltak's report, a growing sense of unease settling into her command persona. The invasion plans they had meticulously prepared were looking less and less feasible with each human interaction they studied. Humanity, it seemed, was not a species to be conquered. They were a force to be understood. The reality survival show materialized on the Xeraxian research screens like a living laboratory of human potential. What humans casually termed Extreme Survival Challenge was about to become the most comprehensive case study in interspecies adaptive capabilities. 6 contestants stood at the edge of a remote Alaskan wilderness, a landscape that would crush most species within hours. The diversity of the group immediately caught Krilltak's attention. Margaret Williams, a 68-year-old grandmother and retired botanical researcher. Jake Rodriguez, a 25-year-old college student majoring in environmental sciences. Rebecca Chen, a high-powered corporate executive in her mid-40s. David Thompson, a professional athlete specializing in ultra-endurance events. Arya Patel, a mechanical engineer. Marcus Green, a wilderness survival instructor. The challenge was simple, or so it seemed. Survive 30 days in one of the most unforgiving environments on the planet with minimal equipment. Each contestant carried only a small backpack with basic tools, a water filtration system, and emergency communication devices that would only be used in life-threatening situations. What unfolded was anything but a simple survival scenario. Margaret Williams became the first source of fascination for the Xeraxian researchers. Where younger contestants relied on physical strength, she deployed generations of accumulated knowledge, using techniques passed down through her family. Indigenous survival skills combined with scientific understanding. She demonstrated a form of survival that transcended individual capability. On the 3rd day, when temperatures dropped to -20 degrees Celsius, Margaret constructed a shelter using techniques that combined traditional indigenous knowledge with modern understanding of thermodynamics. She used fallen branches, moss, and an understanding of wind patterns that would have taken Xeraxian engineers months to calculate. Look at the generational knowledge transfer, Krilltak noted to his research team. She's not just surviving. She's applying a collective intelligence that spans generations. Jake Rodriguez approached survival like a complex engineering problem. His environmental science background transformed every challenge into a series of interconnected systems. When the group's initial water filtration method failed, he didn't panic. Instead, he studied the local plant life, created a multi-stage filtration system using available materials, and improved their water collection efficiency by 300%. The corporate executive, Rebecca Chen, surprised everyone. Her leadership skills, typically confined to boardrooms, became a critical survival asset. She organized the group's resource management, created rotation systems for critical tasks, and maintained group morale through a combination of strategic communication and emotional intelligence. David Thompson's athletic training proved to be more than just physical conditioning. His understanding of human physiological limits allowed the group to conserve energy, optimize movement, and make critical decisions about resource allocation. Arya Patel's engineering background transformed their survival from mere existence to systematic problem-solving. She modified their existing tools, created improvised solutions for multiple challenges, and approached each obstacle as an engineering challenge to be solved. The Xeraxian researchers watched in growing horror and fascination. This wasn't just survival. This was a complex, adaptive system where individual skills merged into a collective intelligence that was exponentially more powerful than its individual components. By the challenge's halfway point, the group wasn't just surviving. They were thriving. They had not only met the basic survival requirements, but had begun to document the ecosystem, create detailed maps, and develop innovative solutions to environmental challenges. Marcus Green, the professional survival instructor, provided the final piece of the puzzle. His role wasn't just about individual survival skills, but about knowledge transfer. Every challenge became a teaching moment, every obstacle an opportunity to expand collective understanding. When the 30-day challenge concluded, the Xeraxian research team sat in stunned silence. What humans considered a recreational challenge was, in essence, a comprehensive demonstration of species-level adaptive capabilities. Captain Zorax reviewed the footage, her preliminary invasion plans crumbling with each passing moment. Humanity was not a species to be conquered. They were a dynamic, adaptive system that transformed challenges into opportunities for growth. The Wilderness Gauntlet was more than a survival challenge. It was a masterclass in human potential. The documentary arrived in the Xeraxian research database like a cultural time bomb. Warriors of the Mind. The philosophy of martial arts promised to be more than just an exploration of human physical combat. It would become a comprehensive study of human cognitive and physical adaptation that would rewrite everything the alien researchers understood about warfare and survival. Professor Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura, a renowned martial arts historian and former competitive fighter, guided the viewer through a journey that was equal parts philosophical discourse and practical demonstration. The Xeraxian researchers, expecting a simple chronicle of physical conflict, found themselves confronting a complex system of human psychological and physiological integration. The documentary began with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a martial art that seemed to epitomize human adaptive capabilities. Unlike Xeraxian combat systems, which relied on rigid, predetermined response protocols, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was a living, breathing philosophy of problem-solving under physical constraints. Krultak watched with growing fascination as Dr. Nakamura explained the core principle. A smaller, physically weaker opponent could defeat a larger, stronger adversary through technique, strategy, and psychological manipulation. Each demonstration became a masterclass in turning limitation into advantage. The featured practitioners were a study in human diversity. Elena Rodriguez, a medical doctor who practiced jiu-jitsu as a form of stress management. Marcus Way, a quantum physics researcher who approached martial arts as a complex computational problem. Sarah Johnson, a former military intelligence officer who saw combat as a multilayered strategic interaction. Their training sessions were not mere physical exercises. They were complex problem-solving scenarios where physical technique merged with psychological strategy. When Elena rolled with a significantly larger male partner, she didn't rely on strength. Instead, she used precise leverage, understanding of human biomechanics, and psychological positioning to control the engagement. Marcus approached sparring like a complex mathematical equation. His movements were calculated, each position a potential solution to a dynamic, ever-changing problem set. He would later explain that his martial arts practice was fundamentally similar to solving quantum mechanical problems, understanding complex systems through adaptive interaction. The documentary delved deeper, exploring how martial arts transcended physical combat. It wasn't about violence, it was about understanding human potential, personal growth, and philosophical development. Dr. Nakamura introduced the concept of mushin, a state of mindfulness where action happens without conscious thought. The Xeraxian researchers realized this wasn't just a combat technique. It was a comprehensive approach to human adaptation that merged physical, psychological, and philosophical domains. The most shocking segment came when the documentary explored how martial artists from different disciplines collaborated. A Muay Thai fighter, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, and a Wing Chun master didn't just demonstrate their individual skills. They created hybrid techniques that merged their distinct approaches, showing a level of collaborative innovation that was utterly foreign to Xeraxian combat philosophies. Sarah Johnson's segment was particularly revealing. As a former military intelligence officer, she demonstrated how martial arts principles translated directly into strategic thinking. Her ability to read micro-expressions, understand psychological positioning, and adapt in real time was a form of combat that existed far beyond physical confrontation. When she sparred with Marcus, it wasn't a physical contest. It was a complex communication, a dialogue conducted through movement, positioning, and psychological manipulation. The Xeraxian researchers watched in growing amazement as two humans transformed a potential conflict into a form of intellectual and physical poetry. The final segment explored martial arts as a form of personal and collective meditation. It wasn't about defeating an opponent. The makerspace in downtown San Francisco looked like organized chaos to the Xeraxian observers. What appeared to be a random collection of humans with divergent backgrounds was actually a living, breathing innovation ecosystem that would redefine the very concept of technological development. Krilltek's research team had been tracking this particular collaborative workspace for weeks, and each observation challenged everything they understood about technological progress. Unlike the hierarchical, centralized research structures of the Xeraxian Empire, this space represented a completely different model of innovation, decentralized, collaborative, and driven by an almost inexplicable combination of curiosity and problem-solving. The core team defied traditional professional categorization. Dr. Aisha Patel, a biotechnology researcher with a background in genetic engineering. Jack Rodriguez, a high school dropout turned self-taught robotics engineer. Elena Chen, a professional artist with an uncanny understanding of materials science. Marcus Thompson, a former military engineer now working on sustainable technology solutions. Their current project emerged from an unexpected challenge, developing rapid response infrastructure solutions for regions prone to natural disasters. What began as a weekend hackathon quickly transformed into a comprehensive technological intervention that would make most dedicated research institutions look primitive by comparison. The team's approach was fundamentally different from any technological development the Xeraxians had ever witnessed. Instead of working in isolation, they created an open-source collaborative environment where individual expertise merged into a collective intelligence. Each member brought a unique perspective, transforming potential limitations into innovative solutions. Jack Rodriguez demonstrated this perfectly. Using a combination of 3D printing technology, open-source design principles, and an intuitive understanding of materials, he developed a modular water purification system that could be rapidly deployed in emergency situations. The design was not just functional, it was adaptable, capable of being modified with minimal tools and maximum creativity. Dr. Aisha Patel's contribution came from an unexpected direction. Her background in genetic engineering allowed her to develop microbial solutions that could help restore ecological systems damaged by disasters. What other researchers might have considered a theoretical concept, she transformed into a practical, deployable technology. Elena Chen's artistic background proved to be a critical component of their innovative process. Her understanding of materials, color theory, and design principles meant that their emergency technologies were not just functional, they were also psychologically supportive. The water purification systems she helped design were color-coded and intuitively structured, making them easily understandable even in high-stress environments. Marcus Thompson brought a strategic perspective that bridged their individual innovations. His military background allowed him to understand logistical challenges, transforming their individual technologies into a comprehensive, deployable system. The Xeraxian researchers watched in growing amazement as the team developed not just a single solution, but an entire ecosystem of technological interventions. A modular shelter system that could be quickly assembled, communication devices that could function in extreme conditions, portable energy generation units that used a combination of traditional and experimental technologies. What truly shocked the alien observers was the team's approach to technological development. They didn't just create solutions, they documented every step, made their designs open source, and actively encouraged global collaboration. Each innovation was not just a product, but an invitation for further development. During a simulated disaster response scenario, the team demonstrated capabilities that would have taken Xeraxian research teams years to develop. They rapidly deployed their technologies, adapted to changing conditions in real time, and maintained a level of collaborative communication that seemed to transcend individual capabilities. Krilltek's analysis was unequivocal. This was not just technological development. This was a living, breathing system of collective problem-solving that transformed human curiosity into a powerful adaptive mechanism. The makerspace was more than a workspace. It was a glimpse into humanity's most powerful technological asset, the ability to transform individual creativity into collective innovation. As the research team completed their observations, Captain Zorax received Krilltak's report with a growing sense of both respect and unease. Humanity was not a species to be understood through traditional technological paradigms. They were a dynamic, collaborative system that could transform any challenge into an opportunity for growth and innovation. The technological wildcard was not a weapon or a single breakthrough. It was humanity's extraordinary capacity for collective creativity. The Zoraxian High Council chamber fell into a silence so profound that even the quantum resonators seemed to hold their breath. Captain Zorax stood at the center of the massive holographic display, her body language a mixture of military precision and something entirely new: respect. "The invasion is no longer viable," she stated, her words cutting through millennia of Zoraxian military doctrine. Krilltak's comprehensive report filled the massive data projection. Hundreds of hours of human observation, meticulously analyzed and cross-referenced, painted a picture that destroyed every preconception the Zoraxian Empire had about potential conquest. The eldest member of the High Council, Grand Strategist Vorlak, rose with a movement that suggested centuries of accumulated military tradition. "Explain," he demanded, his translator rendering the click consonant Zoraxian language into a sharp clinical command. Zorax began her presentation with the mountain rescue team. She showed how a group of recreational climbers demonstrated adaptive capabilities that would take Zoraxian special forces decades to develop. The way they communicated, solved problems, and transformed potential disaster into a learning opportunity was not just impressive. It was revolutionary. The underwater cave exploration came next. The marine biology team that turned a potential death scenario into a groundbreaking scientific expedition revealed a species that didn't just survive. They transformed challenges into opportunities for growth and understanding. The Wilderness Survival Challenge demonstrated something even more shocking. A diverse group of humans, using nothing more than collective knowledge and adaptive thinking, thrived in an environment that would have destroyed most species within hours. The martial arts documentary revealed a philosophical approach to conflict that transcended physical combat. Humans didn't just fight. They used physical interaction as a method of personal and collective development. The Makerspace Project was the final devastating piece of evidence. A group of civilians, working with minimal resources, could develop technological solutions that would take the Zoraxian Research Division's years to conceptualize. "We are not looking at a potential conquest," Zorax concluded. "We are looking at a species-level adaptive mechanism that transforms every challenge into an opportunity for growth." Grand Strategist Vorlak's response was unexpected. Instead of anger, there was a hint of something almost like respect. "Explain the fundamental difference," he demanded. Krilltak stepped forward, his secondary research eyes pulsing with an intensity that suggested a fundamental shift in understanding. Zoraxian civilization approaches challenges as problems to be overcome. Humans approach challenges as opportunities to be understood and transformed. The holographic displays continued to cycle through human achievements. A grandmother using generational knowledge to survive in extreme conditions. A software engineer treating a mountain rescue like a complex coding problem. A chef understanding team dynamics with the same precision she used in creating culinary masterpieces. The invasion plans that had taken decades to develop now looked like a child's naive drawing. Simplistic, limited, fundamentally flawed. "Our intelligence was wrong," Zorax said, a statement that would have been heretical in any previous Zoraxian military context. "Humanity is not a species to be conquered. They are a dynamic, adaptive system that turns limitation into potential." The High Council sat in stunned silence. Centuries of military doctrine were being dismantled in real time, replaced by a new understanding that was both terrifying and fascinating. Grand Strategist Vorlak made a decision that would change the course of Zoraxian civilization. "We will not invade," he declared. "We will study. We will learn." Humanity had transformed yet another potential conflict into an opportunity for understanding, not through violence, but through their extraordinary capacity for adaptation, creativity, and growth. The confrontation was over before it had truly begun. The diplomatic vessel approached Earth, not as a weapon of conquest, but as a school of potential understanding. Krilltak stood on the bridge, his secondary research eyes scanning the blue-green planet with a mixture of scientific curiosity and something remarkably close to excitement. Everything had changed. The first Xeraxian diplomatic team was a carefully curated group. Scientists, researchers, and, most surprisingly, students. They were here to learn, not to dictate. Their initial invasion plans had transformed into the most comprehensive cultural exchange program in Xeraxian history. Their landing site was carefully chosen, the same mountain rescue center where their initial observations had begun. Sarah Rodriguez, now leading the center's training programs, waited with a team that represented the diverse capabilities they had first witnessed. The initial meeting was anything but formal. Where traditional diplomatic protocols would have demanded rigid interaction, the humans approached the situation with a combination of scientific curiosity and genuine welcome. "We heard you wanted to learn about survival," Sarah said, her translator rendering her words with a hint of humor that immediately challenged Xeraxian communication norms. Krilltak's first challenge came unexpectedly. Instead of a sterile briefing, he was handed a climbing harness. "Theory is good," Michael Chen, the software engineer, explained, "but understanding requires experience." The next several weeks became a comprehensive deconstruction of everything the Xeraxians understood about learning, survival, and interspecies interaction. Rock climbing became a lesson in problem-solving. Each vertical challenge was broken down into complex systems: geological structure, physical biomechanics, psychological approach. The Xeraxian researchers discovered that what humans considered a recreational activity was actually a comprehensive method of understanding complex adaptive systems. Elena Vasquez's wilderness survival workshops transformed their understanding of resource management. What could be created from seemingly limited resources? How could collective knowledge be transferred and adapted? Each lesson was a masterclass in human potential. The Martial Arts Training Center became a philosophical exploration. Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura demonstrated how physical techniques were actually methods of understanding human potential, psychological adaptation, and collective growth. The makerspaces became collaborative laboratories, where Xeraxian technological understanding was completely dismantled and rebuilt. Open-source collaboration, the idea that knowledge should be shared rather than hoarded, became a revolutionary concept. What began as a potential invasion had transformed into the most comprehensive cultural exchange in galactic history. Captain Zorax watched her researchers, no longer just observers, but active participants in a new form of understanding. They were learning that survival was not about conquest, but about adaptation, creativity, and collective growth. The most surprising development came from the youngest Xeraxian researchers. They didn't just study human techniques, they began to incorporate them. Their reports became less about clinical observation and more about personal transformation. One researcher's report captured the fundamental shift. Humans do not see challenges as obstacles. They see them as opportunities for growth, understanding, and collective development. The diplomatic mission was becoming something entirely new. Not a conquest, not even a traditional exchange, but a mutual exploration of potential. As the first Earth sunset painted the sky for the Xeraxian visitors, Krilltak understood the true lesson. Humanity's greatest strength was not in its technology, not in its physical capabilities, but in its extraordinary capacity to transform limitation into potential. The universe was about to learn that survival was an art form, and humans were its most brilliant artists.